Two people each have $40,000 in debt. Same amount, same mix, credit cards, car loan, student loan, same income, same monthly budget for debt payoff. The first one uses a method called the debt avalanche. The second uses one called the debt snowball. 3 years later, the first one is debt-free and saved nearly $5,000 in interest. The second one is still paying, but only by a few months, and stayed motivated the entire time. So which method is actually right? The answer isn't what either side of the debate will tell you. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which method to use for your specific debts. The hybrid most financial planners actually recommend in private, and the trick that beats both methods on its own. But first, the 60-second version of how each one works. The debt avalanche method says, list all your debts, rank them by interest rate from highest to lowest, and throw every extra dollar at the highest rate debt while paying the minimum on everything else. Once the highest rate debt is gone, roll that payment to the next highest rate. Mathematically, this saves you the most money and gets you out of debt fastest. The debt snowball method does the same setup, except you rank debts by balance, smallest to largest. Throw every extra dollar at the smallest balance first, regardless of interest rate. Once it's gone, roll the payment to the next smallest. Psychologically, this gives you quick visible wins that keep you going. Same two people, same $40,000 in debt, different rules about which debt to attack first. The difference shows up in both dollars and behavior. Let's run the actual math. Imagine you have a credit card with $8,000 at 24% interest, a car loan with $15,000 at 6%, and a student loan with $17,000 at 5%. Total debt $40,000. Avalanche attacks the 24% credit card first while paying minimums on the other two. Over 3 years, you pay about $44,000 total, $4,000 in interest. Snowball attacks the $8,000 credit card first too, in this case, because it's also the smallest balance. But after the credit card is gone, Snowball moves to the car loan even though the student loan and the car loan have similar rates. Total paid over 3 years with Snowball, about $49,000, $5,000 more in interest. On paper, Avalanche wins clean, almost always by hundreds to thousands of dollars depending on the spread of rates. Here's the part the math people don't talk about. A famous Northwestern study followed real people paying off real debt and found that the people using the snowball method were significantly more likely to actually finish paying off all their debt. Not because the math worked better, but because the early small wins kept them engaged. Paying off a small debt entirely in 3 or 4 months and watching it disappear from your list creates a real measurable surge of momentum. That momentum is worth more than the mathematical optimization in many cases. Avalanche is technically optimal. It's also boring, slow, and the first debt you attack might take 18 months to disappear, which feels like nothing is happening. Real people quit. The $5,000 you would have saved doesn't matter if you stop after 8 months and resume the debt cycle. The optimal plan you don't follow is worth zero. Here's what most financial planners actually tell their clients in private. Use the snowball for the first 1 or 2 small debts to build momentum, then switch to the avalanche once you're past the small wins. This captures the early psychological boost where it matters most, then optimizes the math for the bulk of the payoff period where most of the interest is actually being charged. You don't have to commit purely to one method. You can adapt as you go. The hybrid often delivers nearly the mathematical efficiency of Avalanche with much of the psychological power of Snowball, because by the time you finish the early small debts, the habit and the momentum are real, and you can stick with Avalanche on the bigger balances. Regardless of which method you choose, there's one rule that overrides everything. Never pay off a debt with a really low interest rate first just because the balance is small. A federal student loan at 4% is not the same kind of debt as a credit card at 24%. Putting extra money toward the low-rate loan when you also carry high-rate debt is mathematically the same as setting money on fire. The rule of thumb, debts above about 7% interest are emergencies. Pay them off aggressively before doing almost anything else. Debts below about 4 to 5% are slow money. Pay them on schedule. Debts in the middle are judgment calls based on your specific situation. This single rule changes who attacks what first, regardless of whether you're using Avalanche or Snowball. Here's the second question every debtor asks. Should I be saving while I pay off debt, or all in on payoff? The honest answer is both, in specific amounts. Hold a small starter emergency fund of about $1,000 in a savings account before you start aggressive payoff. This prevents one car repair from putting you back on a credit card during your payoff plan. Always, always. Capture your full employer 401k match while paying off debt. Skipping 100% match to throw an extra $200 at a 20% credit card is mathematically backward. Beyond that, prioritize debt payoff over larger emergency savings until your high-interest debts are gone. Then flip the order, build the full 6-month emergency fund, then resume real investing. The order matters more than most people realize. One of the most powerful debt payoff tools is one most people never use. If you have credit card debt and decent credit, you can often qualify for a balance transfer card that charges 0% interest for 12 to 21 months. You pay a one-time transfer fee of about 3%, and then every dollar you pay during the promotional period goes entirely to principal, not interest. On $10,000 of credit card debt at 24%, an 18-month 0% transfer can save you over $2,000 in interest alone, even after the transfer fee. The catch is you have to actually pay it off during the promotional period. When 0% ends, the rate usually jumps to something high. Used carefully, this is one of the most leveraged moves in debt payoff. Used carelessly, it just moves the debt around. Student loans deserve their own conversation because they don't behave like other debt. Federal student loans have income-driven repayment plans, deferment options, public service loan forgiveness, and other programs that genuinely change the math. For federal loans specifically, aggressively paying them off ahead of schedule can sometimes be the wrong move, because you might give up forgiveness, eligibility, or flexibility you'd want during a future income drop. Private student loans are different. They behave like normal debt, and aggressive payoff is usually right. The mistake most people make is treating both kinds the same. If you have federal loans, research income-driven repayment and forgiveness programs specifically for your career situation before you throw extra money at them. This research alone has saved careful borrowers tens of thousands of dollars. Here's something almost nobody talks about. If you have credit card debt that's significantly past due, typically 6 months or more, credit card companies will frequently accept a lump sum settlement of 40 to 60% of the balance just to close the account. They've already written off the loss internally. They'd rather get something than nothing. This only works if you're already deeply behind, and it does damage your credit score for a period of time. But if you've fallen into serious credit card debt and have a way to come up with a partial lump sum, settlement can take $15,000 of debt down to $7,000 without years of interest payments. Done strategically, this can be the fastest way out of a deep hole. Done casually, it trashes your credit unnecessarily. Paying off debt is half the battle. Not getting back into it is the other half, and most people skip this step entirely. The anti-debt system is simple. 1. Automate one savings transfer every payday into an emergency fund, even while you're paying off debt. 2. Switch your daily spending to a debit card or cash for a year. The behavioral research is clear. Credit cards quietly increase spending by 15 to 30% compared to cash. 3. Cancel any credit card you don't use for active rewards. 4. Write down the cumulative interest you paid on your debt and keep the number visible. The memory of how much it cost is one of the strongest psychological defenses against relapse. Most people pay off debt and then quietly slide back into it because no system changed. The math works once you change the environment. Let's run a real one. You have $10,000 on a credit card at 22%, a $5,000 personal loan at 12%, and a $15,000 car loan at 6%, $30,000 total debt. You can afford $500 a month above all minimums for payoff. Avalanche order, credit card, personal loan, car loan, you're debt-free in roughly 4.5 years. Snowball order, personal loan, credit card, car loan, you're debt-free in roughly 4 years and 10 months, but you paid about $1,100 more in interest than Avalanche. Hybrid, knock out the personal loan first for the psychological win, about 10 months, then switch to Avalanche on the credit card. You're debt-free in about 4 years and 5 months, with interest paid only about $400 worse than pure Avalanche. The hybrid often quietly wins on combined outcome. So here's the whole thing in one breath. Avalanche wins on paper, Snowball wins on follow-through, and the hybrid quietly beats both for most real humans. Always capture your 401k match before extra debt payments. Hold a small starter emergency fund. Use balance transfers and 0% offers strategically. Treat federal student loans as their own special case. Pair payoff with system changes that prevent relapse. The $40,000 gap between the two people in our cold open is real, but the bigger gap is between people who finish their payoff plan and people who quit halfway through. Pick the method that lets you finish. Run it on autopilot. Stop the bleeding once, and the rest is just compounding in your favor for the rest of your life. If this helped, subscribe. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.